boat ride of awkwardness. The Hogwarts Express had finally wheezed to a stop at Hogsmeade Station, and Harry felt their stomach doing nervous flips that had nothing to do with the train's jerky braking. Through the window, they could see other students grabbing their trunks and filing off onto the platform, chattering excitedly about finally arriving at school. "First years." "First years over here," boomed a familiar voice over the commotion. Harry spotted Hagrid's massive form through the crowd, his wild hair and beard making him look like a friendly giant among the nervous 11-year-olds clustering around him. Harry, Ron, and Hermione made their way over to the group, dragging their trunks behind them. The platform was chaos, parents giving last-minute hugs, older students shouting greetings to friends, and what appeared to be at least 3 different owls having a territorial dispute near the luggage cart. Right then, Hagrid called out, clapping his enormous hands together. "Everyone got their trunks?" "Good, good. Now, before we head to the boats, I've got a few things to go over with ye." He pulled out what looked like a scroll that had been rolled and unrolled so many times it was falling apart at the edges. "Been asked to give ye all a bit of a, whatcha-call-it, cultural orientation before we get to the castle." Hermione immediately perked up. "Cultural orientation? That sounds very progressive." Well, Hagrid scratched his head, looking uncomfortable. "Professor McGonagall gave me this list of things I'm supposed to mention. Something about making sure everyone feels earthy included and whatnot." He squinted at the scroll, holding it at arm's length. "Right, first item, acknowledge the traditional inhabitants of the land. Well, I suppose that'd be the centaurs in the Forbidden Forest, though they're not exactly what you'd call friendly to visitors. Oh, and the giant squid in the lake, been there longer than any of us." The giant squid piped up a small girl with blonde pigtails. "Is it dangerous?" "Dangerous? Nah, not really. Mostly just minded its own business for the past few centuries. Though I suppose we never did ask if it wanted us sailing boats over its head all the time." Harry noticed Hermione starting to look concerned. "Hagrid, are you saying we're disturbing the squid's natural habitat without its consent?" "Well, I wouldn't put it quite like that." Hagrid mumbled, consulting his scroll again. "But now that ye mention it, we do sort of just use the lake without asking." "That's terrible." Hermione exclaimed. "We should establish some kind of communication protocol with the squid before we proceed." How exactly would we do that?" he asked Ron, adjusting his prayer cap nervously. "We could try sign language," suggested a boy with enormous front teeth. "Or maybe interpretive dance?" Hagrid looked increasingly panicked. "Look, I don't think we need to be doing any dancing at the squid. Let's just all move on, shall we?" He consulted his scroll again. Next item, respect for diverse magical creatures. Right, well, we've got all sorts living around the castle. House elves in the kitchens, ghosts in the corridors, portraits on the walls, and I'm supposed to mention that they all have feelings and deserve to be treated with dignity. House elves. Hermione's eyes lit up with what Harry was beginning to recognize as her crusading expression. "Are they paid fair wages?" "Paid wages." Hagrid looked baffled. "They're house elves. They like to work." "Nobody likes to work without compensation. That's slavery." "Now hold on," Hagrid said, waving his hands frantically. "The house elves are perfectly happy. Been with wizarding families for centuries. It's traditional. Tradition doesn't justify exploitation." Hermione declared, pulling out a notebook and starting to scribble furiously. "I'm going to research this immediately." A red-headed boy near the back of the group raised his hand. Excuse me, but are we supposed to be getting to the castle?" "My mum said something about a feast." "Right, yes, the boats," Hagrid said gratefully, rolling up his scroll. "Follow me, everyone. And stick together, don't want anyone falling in the lake." They followed Hagrid down a steep, narrow path that led to the edge of the Great Lake. In the growing dusk, Harry could see a fleet of small boats bobbing gently at a wooden dock. The castle loomed on the far shore, its windows glowing warmly in the darkness. For to a boat. Hagrid called out. And be careful getting in, they're a bit wobbly. Harry, Ron, and Hermione naturally gravitated toward the same boat, along with a nervous-looking boy who'd asked about the feast. As they settled into their seats, the boat rocked alarmingly. I'm Neville Longbottom, the boy introduced himself quietly. Are you really Harry Potter? Yeah, that's me, Harry replied, trying to sound casual about it. And I'm Ronald Weasley, Ronald added. My family's new to the wizarding world. Well, new to the British wizarding world, anyway. I'm Hermione Granger, Hermione said, though she was distracted by examining the boat's construction. These vessels appear to be self-navigating. I wonder if they're powered by enslaved water spirits. Enslaved water spirits. Neville squeaked. It's entirely possible, Hermione said seriously. We really should investigate the ethical implications of magical transportation before we just assume it's acceptable. Forward. Hagrid shouted from his own boat, which was considerably larger than the student boats and looked like it was struggling to stay afloat under his weight. The boats began to move on their own, gliding smoothly across the dark water. It should have been magical and peaceful, but their boat's enchantments apparently included some kind of automated announcement system. Welcome aboard the Hogwarts Express Lake Shuttle Service, a cheerful voice announced from somewhere near the bow. Please ensure all passengers have fastened their safety harnesses and stated their preferred pronouns for the journey manifest. Harry looked around the boat in confusion. Safety harnesses? I don't see any safety harnesses. Pronouns? Neville looked terrified. What pronouns? I don't understand what's happening. This boat is asking for our pronouns, Hermione explained matter-of-factly. It's actually quite progressive. I use she's/her pronouns. He came for me, Ron added. They them, Harry said, though they felt slightly ridiculous talking to a boat. All eyes turned to Neville, who looked like he was about to faint. I don't. Is this a test? Am I failing already? Just say he's him, Harry whispered. It's okay. Eat him. Neville practically shouted at the boat. Thank you for your cooperation, the boat announced cheerfully. Please be advised that this vessel operates in accordance with the International Magical Creature Rights Convention of 1892. Any harassment of lake-dwelling entities will result in immediate ejection from the boat. See? Hermione said triumphantly. They do have protections for magical creatures. From Hagrid's boat came a loud splash, followed by his voice booming across the water, sorry about that. Didn't mean to splash here. A moment later, something large and tentacled broke the surface of the water near their boat. The giant squid's massive head emerged, water streaming from its ancient-looking eyes as it regarded the flotilla of boats with what appeared to be mild annoyance. Oh my, Hermione breathed. It's magnificent. The squid made a sound that was somewhere between a whale song and a very large person clearing their throat. Several boats rocked in the waves created by its movement. I think it's trying to communicate, Hermione said excitedly. We should respond. Respond how? Harry asked, though they had a sinking feeling they already knew what Hermione was going to suggest. Hello, beautiful creature. Hermione called out across the water. We come in peace. We acknowledge your sovereignty over this lake and apologize for any disturbance. The squid's enormous eye fixed on their boat specifically. It made another sound, this one distinctly less melodic. I don't think it's happy, Neville whispered. Of course it's not happy, Hermione said. Probably decades of boats disturbing its habitat without so much as a by your leave. We should establish a proper dialogue. Hermione, Ron had said carefully, maybe we shouldn't antagonize the giant magical creature. But Hermione was already leaning over the side of the boat, trying to get closer to the squid. We're very sorry about the intrusion. Is there anything we can do to make this more comfortable for you? The squid responded by shooting a jet of water directly at their boat, soaking all four passengers. I think that was a no, Harry said, wiping lake water from their glasses. Or maybe it was a greeting. Hermione said optimistically, despite being dripping wet. different species of different communication methods. From across the water, they could hear other boats having similar encounters. One boat full of first years was apparently trying to sing what sounded like a peace song at the squid, while another group was attempting to perform what looked like synchronized swimming motions while still sitting in their boat. "This is mental," muttered a girl with black hair from a nearby boat. "Are we going to spend the whole year apologizing to every magical creature we meet?" "It's called respect," Hermione called back. Something previous generations clearly didn't understand. Previous generations managed to get to school without conducting diplomatic negotiations with the lake life, the girl replied. Hagrid's voice boomed across the water. "Everyone just try to be polite to the squid. And don't make any sudden movements." "Be polite to the squid," Neville repeated faintly. "This is not what my gran said Hogwarts would be like." The squid, apparently tiring of the attention, sank back beneath the surface with a final dismissive splash that sent more water cascading over the boats. "Well," Hermione said, wringing out her Rhodes, "I think that went rather well." "Rather well?" Harry stared at her. "We got soaked, and I'm pretty sure the squid told us to bugger off." "At least we established contact," Hermione replied defensively. "That's more than previous generations ever did." As they approached the castle, their boat's announcement system kicked in again. "Thank you for choosing Hogwarts Express Lake Shuttle Service. Please rate your experience on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being completely satisfied with our cultural sensitivity protocols." "How are we supposed to rate a boat?" Ramad asked. "I think we just ignore it," Harry suggested. "Ignoring it would be rude," Hermione said. "The boat is clearly trying to provide good service." "It's a boat, Hermione. It doesn't have feelings." "How do you know?" "Just because something is enchanted doesn't mean it lacks consciousness." "Warning, passengers who fail to provide feedback may be subject to additional cultural sensitivity briefings," the boat announced ominously. "Sign," Harry said quickly. 8 out of 10. Very culturally sensitive. 7 out of 10, Ramad added. Lost points for the soaking. 10 out of 10. Hermione said enthusiastically. Excellent creature writes awareness. 2 out of 10, Neville whispered. I'm wet and confused and we haven't even gotten to school yet. Thank you for your feedback, the boat replied. Your responses have been logged for quality improvement purposes. As they finally reached the shore, Harry couldn't help but notice that the older students watching from the castle windows were pointing and laughing at the soddy first years climbing out of the boats. Well, Ramad said, trying to wring out his Rhodes, at least we survived our first magical creature encounter. Survived? Hermione looked indignant. We established respectful first contact. We got told off by a squid, Harry corrected. Semantics, Hermione waved dismissively. Hagrid was helping students out of boats, apologizing profusely to anyone who'd gotten particularly wet. Sorry about that, everyone. The squid's usually more, less splashy. Must be having an off day. Or maybe, suggested the black-haired girl from the other boat, it's tired of being treated like a tourist attraction. That's entirely possible, Hermione agreed. We should really establish some kind of formal treaty with the lake's inhabitants. A treaty, Harry repeated. With a squid. Why not? Indigenous peoples have treaties with governments. This is just interspecies diplomacy. As they made their way up the path toward the castle, Harry couldn't help but wonder if their entire Hogwarts experience was going to be this complicated. They'd barely made it through the boat ride without an international incident involving aquatic wildlife. Right then, Hagrid said, consulting his battered scroll one more time. Everyone ready for the sorting? Oh, and just so you know, the sorting hat's been updated with some new, considerations. Something about making sure everyone feels properly represented. Updated how? Hermione asked immediately. Well, I'm not entirely sure, Hagrid admitted. But Professor McGonagall mentioned something about it taking longer than usual these days. Something about consultations and considerations and, you'll see. Harry exchanged glances with Ramad and Neville. If the boat ride was any indication, the sorting ceremony was going to be very interesting indeed. As they approached the massive oak doors of Hogwarts Castle, Harry took a deep breath and tried to prepare themselves for whatever came next. They had a feeling that their first year at Hogwarts was going to be unlike anything they could have imagined. And they were absolutely right.